Good afternoon and welcome to everyone. Thanks so much for sharing the states that you're from. It's great to see all of you from across the US and the territories and all the way into the Pacific, across the Pacific and up to Alaska. We're really glad to see you here for this presentation on understanding the new social media data collection and reporting standards for parent centers. With me today, well, let me introduce myself. My name is Deborah Jennings, and I am the director of the Center for Parent Information and Resources, which is housed at SPAN Parent Advocacy Network. I'm here in New Jersey, and today I am joined by Eliana Tardio, who is with FND in Florida, and also Joe LaBelle at FND in Florida, and they are our social media gurus today. So in today's session, we can go to the next slide. We're going to be talking to you about where we've come from in terms of the parent center data collection, particularly as it relates to our participation and working with families in the various technologies. I started with the National Center in 2013, and so we were responsible for the 2013 and the 2014 data collections, and every year up until this date. And when we started out with the 2014 collection, we said, we need to really look at where are parent centers today in terms of the ways that they are disseminating information, the ways they're communicating with families and professionals. And we pulled together a team of parent center staff just like you to really talk to us about what the realities look like on the ground. And I love this visual of the feather pen and that typewriter in the middle. I know there are many young people, or I would say younger than me, folks on the line, and they may not even remember the typewriter and having to use correct type and painting over your mistakes and cutting and pasting, like really with scissors to cut and paste to put that application together. And that just brings back so many memories for me. And then where we are today, we are today with laptops, computers, and smartphones, and all of these changes in terms of the hardware for technology have also helped us to change as parent centers in the ways that we are connecting with and serving families. So when we started, we didn't really have a social media as one of the things that we counted, but we did in 2014 add social media as an area for our counting. And we also recognized that many of the trainings that we were starting to do were actually back then via conference call. We weren't really even using webinars at that point.
And it's so interesting to me to see this evolution inside of the network and inside the way in which we are collecting our data and working as a unit across the country. When I've been on social media since I was in 6th grade, and I've never actually used a typewriter. I've never, when I was in elementary school, I had my own laptop essentially to be able to take notes, and because my handwriting was so difficult to read, and that was an accommodation that I had in class. And so, really some of my earliest memories are, emailing and being involved in computers and just having technology being an integrated part of my life. So I've never worked in a professional experience without all of these tools. So I'm really, really excited that we're going to be talking about this today and looking at how to really utilize the information we're going to get from social media to help expand some of our programming and reflect the work that we're doing.
So I guess I am right in the middle, right? Because actually I had the honor to still use a typewriter. I learned how to use one, and I was We were sharing that yesterday because you needed so many skills, you know, to use one of these because it was so hard to tape and your fingers needed to be so strong. So I started my career on social media when my children were born. That was in 2004. That was the beginning of YouTube. So I'm basically, you know, one of the first Latinas in the US using social media for activism. And it has been very interesting to see all the changes. I remember how hard it was to actually introduce the idea that social media can be something else than just, you know, somewhere to go to have fun or just share, you know, read gossip. And it became this important tool that basically is leading the world at these times. So it's really interesting and exciting to be co-presenting with Deborah and Joe about this today.
Thank you. And we'll go to the next slide. So as we talked about, there has been an evolution in the ways that we as parent centers are using technology to provide our services. And so I took a look back at our data for the 3 years prior to this current, the most recent data collection. So I looked at what we were doing in 2016, 2017, and 2018. And you know, interestingly enough, when we look at our social media, in 2016, we were at 13 million. That was the count that that you guys submitted in terms of the ways that you were reaching families via social media. And in 2017, we actually had sort of a blip up where we went up to 31.7 million. And then for 2018, we actually went down to 21 million. And then this year, I should say the 2019 data collection, not this one that you're going through right now, but the 2019 data collection, our numbers actually exploded at, you know, we're at 52 million connections in terms of the ways that we were disseminating information to families via social media. So we have really been, we've been really active in social media, and these numbers are just really huge. So looking at this data, and particularly looking at it longitudinally, we really wanted to figure out, okay, what does our social media data really mean? Is that data being collected in similar ways by all of the parent centers? And is there a comparison is there really a comparison from year to year? Because it may depend on who's actually pulling the data for the parent center. And so we brought together a team of parent center staff that was led by Miriam Alizo at SIPR and included Eliana and Joe and several other parent center staff members who then really looked at, okay, what are parent centers doing and how can we make things more consistent across parent centers?
So one of the things that we were looking at when we were inside this work group and really delved into as these changes were coming about is the work on the ground. Boots on the ground, what is happening with the way in which we are using social media. And then like Deborah said, how are we comparing that against different parent centers across the country? Are we all looking at the same information? Is, you know, am I submitting much higher numbers and another center is submitting much lower numbers because we're using different data sets? So that's really what that group was looking at. And, you know, we're looking at the way that how are we using social media? How are we disseminating information? And more we can see that social media is a powerful tool that parent centers are using across the country to not only deliver trainings, but to disseminate information. And as we're doing that and we're building up a reputation of being able to leverage this resource and this tool, that means our numbers are going to go up, and the types of events we're hosting, you know, digital symposiums and virtual conferences and all of these different types of things are going to make our numbers increase. But then the tangible impact in our community is also going to increase. And I think that's really important to point out, is that we're seeing families come off of Facebook into our real life database of being able to connect with them in person. And so these aren't just, numbers up in the clouds. It's actual families that are getting support and resources. And we really wanted to honor that and recognize that type of work that's going on. So we're going to, in just a few minutes, we're going to jump into what are some of the new definitions and kind of trying to align language and processes.
Right. And you was just talking about how important it is to think about families at this point, because many times we hear like social media is not real, or it's too hard, or why do I have, to learn how to do this? And actually, it is a real commitment, because as you was saying, we really want to put emphasis on what the families need and the ways in which families get information these days. So something that we have been always talking about, is like being there with as a parent too, and have the parents' perspective. So we understand that social media is not only convenient because it is something that you can do from your office and get much more families and actually better your numbers and increase your reach, but it's something that you are giving in response to the needs of the community. I'm a parent too. I'm the parent of 2 children with Down syndrome. And something that I know as a full-time employee, as a parent of 2 children with Down syndrome, I'm divorced, is that I don't have time to go in person to a presentation anymore. And I remember when my children were younger, I used to go to these presentations, and I would walk, inside the presentation, and there were hundreds of families, because my son is 16 now. So when he was a year old, I will go, because there was no other option, and sit with my child on my lap, and that was the only option. These days, I go to everything online, and I actually ask for online resources and information and videos and presentations, because I want to actually go and do them in my own pace, because that's the time that I have, and we have to be very, very honest about that, and we have to always focus on the needs of the family.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Eliana. So that's a really good segue to the first change in terms of, and I want to call it not only a change, but mostly a clarification, because we are delivering training in so many different ways and using different virtual platforms now. So one of the definitions that we wanted to make sure that we clarified for this current data collection is what are we counting as virtual trainings? As I said earlier, when we started talking about virtual trainings, we were just really talking sometimes about conference call trainings, barely doing webinars, but now we're doing trainings via the live web, like using Facebook Live and Instagram Live and YouTube. And we want to make sure that those trainings are being counted under the training numbers. So as you'll see on the screen, virtual trainings are those parent-centered presentations delivered using methods that are not in person. So you're training using live web, live social media platforms, as well as good old phone and conferencing and video conferencing, and then other live virtual meeting platforms. And maybe some of you might want to share in the chat some of the virtual meeting platforms that you've been using now, so we can make sure that we are capturing those as well. And also that these trainings are delivered via access to the Parent Center's presentation materials. So trainings that are accessed via your website as well. You can go to the next slide, and then making sure that when we're looking at trainings via, say, YouTube or Facebook Live, that we are not counting those numbers in the social media definition. In social media, we're really focusing on the social media reach of that content that you're posting on your social media platforms. And so we want you to actually give us the total number of users who are seeing your content. That's your social media reach. The content that you're posting on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, etc. And then on this slide, there's a reminder that viewers of training videos that are posted on social media are counted as virtual trainings. They are not counted in your social media numbers. And so we really want each of us as parent centers to be consistent in the ways that we're counting our connections and contacts in both of these areas. We can go to the next slide.
So what counts? I think that's what we all want to know, right? And when we're looking at Zoom, GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar, for virtual trainings, I'm going to talk about that for a minute. So for virtual trainings, what counts? When we're looking at those traditional webinar models, so anything that's accessed not live in person, we still want to mirror the way that we are collecting data in person. And what I mean by that is we want to make sure that everyone is counted that one time, right? So when we're looking at those Zoom, GoToMeeting, GoToWebinars, all of those are going to give you reports of either who attended or who registered. When you're looking at your website, you can get the page views of who's been there, so on and so forth. But then whenever possible, we want to be looking at unique views for Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, our websites, all of those areas you can get to unique views for your videos. So it's really important to think about that and to dig into the analytics and dig into the data when we're looking at those other platforms. We want to make sure, just like Deborah had said, we want to make sure that we're not putting the numbers that we're recording under virtual trainings, or the numbers that we have under virtual trainings for Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or YouTube. We're not also putting that inside of Reach. And Eliana is going to talk a little bit about that in just a moment as well. So how are we separating our data is what she's going to go over.
So right here, we also want to make a clarification about social media reach. Social media reach refers to the total number of users who have seen your content in any of your given social media platforms. And this is important to talk about because so many times we get confused about the number of followers. And when we talk about social media reach, we immediately think like if I have 100 followers, then I'm gonna have 100 views every time I post new information. However, social media doesn't work like that. People, they don't need to like your page to access the information that you post. So it's important to understand that every time when you post, you're gonna have a different reach. Also because social media is always gonna actually, you know, like limit your reach, which means that you're gonna probably have a reach of 20% of the people that follow you. But at the same time, if you become viral or if your information is really good, people are gonna start sharing. So probably you're gonna have only 100 followers, but you can have like 10,000 reach for that specific post. So it's really important to understand those concepts. So when you come with the reach or the number of people that have seen your information, share your information, you have the right information. And it is also very empowering because we know that social media is not easy anymore. It is not organic anymore. There is a lot of money behind social media. So that's always a problem, you know, that many times social media platforms are waiting for you to invest money so your content can be seen. However, when you create good content, your content is gonna be seen and it's gonna be shared. So talking about this, you know, this clarification is really important, so you can consider that.
Joe?
Oh, sorry about that. Strategies for collecting virtual training. Sorry, one second. Strategies for collecting virtual training information on various platforms. So when we look at virtual training on Facebook, YouTube, those are where it's going to be a little bit more unique, right?
Mm-hmm.
So GoToWebinar, Zoom, Adobe Connect, we're all familiar with those platforms. We may not be familiar with all of them, but we're familiar with what our company's using, what our agency's using. When we look at Facebook or we look at YouTube Live, those are kind of the outliers when we're trying to figure out, okay, what type of data are we going to be using? So I'm going to focus on Facebook right now. So when we look at Facebook algorithms and Facebook analytics are constantly changing.
Mm-hmm.
And that is absolutely something we have to stay on top of. I tell our leadership team and I tell our management team all the time, the strategies that we're putting in place right this moment may not be the strategies we're going to use 6 months from now or a year from now, but we're going to use the concepts behind them. We're going to still use the same principles of how we're getting to the information, but that might look a little bit different, and we might need to find alternative paths to get to that same data sets as Facebook and YouTube changes the appearance and layout from time to time. So I'm not sure if you guys have seen, but about 2 weeks ago, Facebook completely flipped everything on its head. And they changed the entire layout for individual users. They changed the entire layout for the way that we see our Facebook business pages. And I saw my cell phone glitching on the Facebook app for weeks. And I saw like big gaps in between posts. And I just knew it was coming, and then they released it. They released the update. So what we were used to seeing is not going to be there in the same way anymore. But that doesn't mean the data is not there. That doesn't mean the information isn't there. We just have to dig a little bit deeper. So I'm going to, let me see. Okay, yes, I can take away control from Eliana. And okay. So this is our Facebook page, and one of the things that I want to look at is when we go into, and again, it is all different now. So when we go into our video section, we're going to be able to see directly below all of our videos. We're going to be able to see, okay, 700 views, 7,800 views, 6,000 views. 6,000, 8,000, and that was from a family resource day, so a virtual conference that we hosted back in June, I believe. And then as we scroll through our videos, all of our videos are going to have the amount of views per video that's on there. So this is another conference that we hosted in person and then streamed it to Facebook. So there's a lot of different options. And then when you actually click into one of the presentations, I'll click into this one, for example. Hey, everyone. You're going to be able to see some more information, or you used to be able to see more information right here. Now Facebook has changed that, and they want you to come out and into the Insights area. And from Insights, you're going to be able to see ups and downs. And when you click into videos on the left-hand side, now it's going to say open something called Creator Studios. So when you open Creator Studios, it's going to give you this whole wealth of information and all of these peaks and great things to see. But the real thing that we want to make sure that we're not doing is we're not going in over our head. We're not making this too complicated. We're not doing it to where it's unobtainable for us to get this information. So just being able to go into the video section and then grabbing those views from under the videos is going to make your job a lot easier as you're going through that process. Now, the same thing is true on YouTube. When you're on YouTube, you're able to just go straight to those videos. You're able to see how many people have viewed it. And then when you click into YouTube video, once you're logged in, you can actually see the unique views underneath there as well. So those are, again, those are my best recommendations. Would absolutely be just careful with how deep you dig to get yourself overwhelmed. It's very, very easy to go down a rabbit hole in these data sets. I love looking at data. I love working with data, but you can spend 5.5 hours looking at one single video and the analytics behind it. And we want to make sure that it's easy for our staff to be grabbing those numbers, reporting back just like they do with any other data set that they're reporting to us.
Exactly. That is extremely important, because when we actually go to an in-person presentation or when we deliver an in-person training, we don't look at everyone, you know, and see how much time they are looking at us, you know, or if they stand up or if they leave early. So we don't need to do that, you know, for online data. That is what you are going to find if you keep digging, you know, like more information about how much time people were looking at the screen or the camera and stuff like that, and we really don't need that. So before we go to the next slide, I'm gonna show you some good information actually about how to find information when it comes to social media reach. So can you see my screen right now?
Yep.
Okay. Give me 1 second. Okay. So give me 1 second, please. Okay. So when you go to your page, you're gonna see at the very top that it says more, and then you're gonna be able to see insights. Insights is actually the place where you are gonna go. And so you're gonna be able to find the next one. That is gonna be, sorry, it's blocking me in here. In the next one, you're gonna be able to see the overview. Can you see that on your screen? Sorry.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, you're gonna be able to see the overview. And in the overview, actually, you're gonna be able to see everything, you know, connected. That is gonna be the page views, that is gonna be the page previews, story reach, if you do stories, post reach, etc., etc. So something that we wanna make a lot of emphasis on is that you have to treat this data from social media in the same way and with the same respect that you actually treat, you know, all your data. There is this tendency to believe that you can go only once a year and pull all the information from social media. It doesn't make sense. It's not a good strategy. You have to do it every month. So every month, you know, be sure that you can put something like a reminder, like every 28 days to go and export your data. And so that's going to be the best way. What we do is that, or the strategy that we recommend is to actually download the data every month and upload that to Google Drive. And yes, you know, name that with the month that you are downloading. So you're going to have that information available. That is really important. So I'm going to show you one more in here. When you actually click on export data, it's gonna give you the option. It's gonna give you much more options, because here in the page summary, it only shows you data for 28 days. But once you click in here, it's gonna give you up to a quarter to download information. Again, you know, it's not the best strategy, but it is an option. And something else about this information is that it's gonna give you the option to create your own report. That is also a very good strategy. And it's gonna be really hard, you know, to show you how to do this in such a short time, but I'm gonna show you the last one. So you can see.
Can you double click? It's a little bit small for us to see.
Okay, sorry, thank you. Can you see it now?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so yeah, that is not working well. But all this information, you know, we are going to be able to share, you know, in other ways if you have questions or if you would like us to send you this information. But actually on Facebook, it gives you the option to create your custom layout, and it's going to give you the option to choose which is the information that you would like included in the report. Once you create that custom layout, that is something that is going to be safe. So it's going to be really easy to have access to that information. So with that said, again, you know, we want to be sure that you actually understand how important it is to collect that information every month, how important it is to determine which are which is the information that you want to see there, and then, you know, everything is going to be easier.
And one thing I wanted to share, Eliana was bringing up that photo of kind of the layout inside of Insights. And there was all of these down pointing arrows that had gone down 30%, and there was some up that had gone up 40%. And again, all of that is that organic, week by week, month by month engagement and interaction. So that's not what we're looking at here. We're really looking at specifically what reach did we obtain throughout the month and then cumulatively throughout the year. So like I said, those numbers are a rabbit hole to go down. There's tons of information to look at there. But I really wouldn't be thrown off if you're seeing numbers go down by, you know, like it said up there, 30%. That's not going to be impacting your reach as a whole.
Yeah. And the algorithms, yes, change actually for Facebook and Instagram like 2 weeks ago. So everything has changed. So we see that happening all the time, you know, and that is the challenge with social media, that you basically need to be reinventing yourself all the time, and you need to be connected all the time to see what's going on. And that's why it's so important, you know, to keep track and actually do that work that you are going to be downloading your data. So as you don't want to go deeper and get confused and get, you know, like stressed with all the numbers, you want to be sure that you understand what is working and what is not working. So you're going to see that some of your publications, when we are talking about information dissemination, they are going to be very successful. And you have to understand that and know that, because then you know that you are fulfilling a need in the community and that people are very interested about this specific information. So it is important to do that job, you know, again, not to get, you know, like stress about numbers, but to be very focused about what is working, so you know how to keep going and how to keep building upon your social media plan for information dissemination. That is such a good way to disseminate information, safe, you know, and be interactive with families.
And something that Eliana and I talk about a lot when we're talking to other organizations, parent centers, other nonprofits, is the value and the worth of the information you're providing, especially as you're first getting started and really building up your social media network, is not based in the amount of likes you get. So the worth of the information, we're not chasing to get page likes. We're really wanting to make sure that we're providing high quality information in a way that families are going to need it and want to receive that information. And then again, that consistency over time is really going to produce that engagement that we're all looking for, and making sure that we're replying to folks and we're engaging with them back. So, you know, just things to think about. One person had asked if we would be able to share kind of the template that we have that we use on a monthly basis. And we can definitely upload that into the Whova app with all the headers that we use. We'll kind of wipe out our data and then just leave the headers. So you can customize that inside of Facebook and then have that there as a set customization on a monthly basis.
That's great, Joe. And if you share that with us at the SIPR, we can actually include it in our resources for the Parent Center data collection.
Perfect.
As part of our frequently asked questions. Letitia asks if we can tell her if what she's doing if she's doing it right. So she tells us that she goes to Facebook, then Insights, then Reach, then she changes the time frame. Oops, a bunch of people came in. And then that's where she pulls the numbers that she's going to use for each month and for putting together her report.
So we want to be careful there. We want to be careful there because, again, because Facebook is constantly changing their insights features, we like to stick to those customized reports that we put together. And some of the times Facebook will include video reach inside of that total reach. So just like we had talked about, not overlapping those two if you're doing trainings on Facebook Live, not overlapping those two numbers from social media numbers and training numbers, that can happen. So we want to make sure that we're looking at post reach as opposed to video reaches for those training videos.
And again, yeah, we have to be very careful about how things change with Facebook. We are specifically talking about that. Everything changes all the time. We have seen that some weeks, the information is blocked and it doesn't work. And then you come back into weeks and it's back there. So we have to be careful about that because it is changing all the time. They are updating information all the time. And that is why it's so important, to try to download the information every month and keep, your own information. So when you use also the same template, it's so easy to connect the data. And that's what we do. We get, data month by month. And by the end of the year, we just, sum all the numbers and it comes automatically, from Excel, for example. So it is very convenient and probably we are going to need to dedicate like a whole training to that. But yeah, there are some good strategies that we can share.
So there was an earlier question from Julie about how do you, she says, benchmark from year to year videos. So like if you're in YouTube and you're looking at the views in YouTube, those are the cumulative views for however long you've had that video posted. How would you recommend that she benchmark that so that she's not crossing over years when she pulls together her reports?
So doing it on like Eliana had said, what we do when we grab that data is we look at it on a quarterly basis. So we're able to see what information, what reach we have in that specific quarter. And anything that's outside of that quarter, we're not going to have reach on it. It's going to drop off. That data and that set of information isn't going to be included inside of there. So using the customizable features and using the time frame features is really important when you're looking at your data.
Okay, and those are available in YouTube as well as Facebook?
Absolutely.
Okay, excellent. Let's see, okay. Do you have a suggestion for centers who haven't been downloading their reach data on a monthly basis and now need to go back and get it for the past 12 months for the 2020 data collection? Oh my goodness, time flies, yes.
You can use exactly the same. You can go back up to a couple of years actually. So you can use the insights and use the same tool that we were showing. You're going to be able to go back, and download that information. But just be sure, that again, you try to stick to the strategy to do it from now on, like every month, just to be sure that you get all the information on time. And again, you track how people are responding to the information that you are posting, etc., because that is a very important part, of collecting data, being sure that people are responding and that you are doing a good job and that you can use that data to also drive the new information that you are going to be sharing with your audience.
So, and something else to think about with that is you can only go back in chunks of 4 months at a time, one quarter at a time. So you don't have to go each month by month. You can definitely clump it together. But if you try to do a full year, like with my Google Analytics, I can do a full year at a time. But then with Facebook Insights and YouTube, I can only do that 1 quarter. So.
Okay. And it's going to let you know. It's not going to let you move, any other way. So.
There's a question about data collection reports in Instagram? Are there similar types of data collection reports available in Instagram?
No, Instagram is completely different actually. So you have to do it week by week for a very weird reason. It doesn't work in any other way. And so we really don't work much with the numbers for Instagram because of that reason. We are very focused on YouTube and Facebook. But yeah, it is weekly and they are not that very good, on giving you insights. So Instagram is completely different. It's a completely different monster, and it's because they have been always trying. Yes, it is a monster. They have been always trying to keep, like Instagram, like very clean from ads, and interaction, bad interaction, and all that. So they also limit very much the analytics inside.
Okay. So Angela asks, she says, I thought engagement was the best, but now I'm wondering if likes are better. Are they?
I mean, it goes back to what we were saying before. Social media is all about engagement. It's all about building community. It's about being able to start conversations and, have that sense of togetherness. So engagement is really holistically, when you're looking at engagement, you're looking at people commenting, you're looking at people messaging you, you're looking at people liking, you're looking at all these different things that are kind of wrapped up into that engagement portion, but they're a part of your community. Now, what you want to be careful with what I was saying earlier is we don't want to be chasing likes. We don't want to be posting things that we know are, just going to tug on the heartstrings, or just going to be, a specific post that's super emotional that is only going to get us likes. And those things are, inspirational things are great. We can't look at IDEA content all day, every day. That's just draining. However, we want to make sure that our page is a reflection of who we are as an organization, and we're not chasing down those likes. I was talking with Eliana recently, and we had just read this article looking at how most millennials will look at your social media platforms before they ever go to your websites. So the first view of you as an organization is through your social media channel. And really, how is that cultivating community and cultivating engagement as opposed to just seeking those likes?
Exactly. And if you do a regular search, you're going to realize that your Facebook page is going to be the first thing that is going to come in the search. So be very aware of that. And something else about engagement is like, not everyone, goes and like your stuff, even if they like it. Because many times you're scrolling down and you see something, you like it, and you don't necessarily, click and I like it, right? Or you make a comment. But the engagement is gonna be that people is staying there and looking at your content and staying more than 3 seconds to actually, grab the information that you are providing. So engagement is a very clean number that you can use all the time because it's gonna be capturing that all the time. And likes, you don't go for likes. As you were saying, it's something that we repeat all the time. It doesn't matter if you have 100,000 likes, on your page, if that people never goes and see your information. So it's much better to have, a regular number of followers that they really engage with you. That's real engagement. And they really share what you are giving to people. So you are bringing more people, to your audience, that they are real people. You want to be sure that people really understand what you are giving them. So as you were saying, that's why it's so important to actually focus on what we have to deliver. And every time when we post something on social media, let's stop and think like, will I give this in print to a family? That is a very good strategy. Because if I'm posting a meme on my Facebook page, will I be using, federal funding to actually print, like 100 memes to give to families at an outreach? Probably no, right? So we have to do that. We have to be very, very, focus on what we are giving, because it is exactly the same exercise that we do when we go out in the community and when we pass a flyer.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to say that what I find, because we do try to follow all of you in terms of your social media, and you know, all of you are posting really great content. And one of the things that we should definitely do is we should follow each other and share each other's content. I mean, I am always, you know, posting FND content and peak content personally, but also on our SPAN page and also the SIPR page, because, you know, I don't have to chase content, because the folks, you guys in my network, are posting such great stuff that I can always have some really good content to keep my pages fresh. We have someone asked about Twitter and the analytics for Twitter. What does Twitter's analytics look like? Because I know that we're all doing a lot of tweeting, especially right now.
Yeah, they basically look the same. You can go, you know, and download every quarter for Twitter too. They are very clean. Actually, it is very, very functional and easy to get information on Twitter. Actually, I like Twitter much more, you know, than Facebook when it comes to analytics. So you just go and look, you know, for the analytics inside Twitter actually, and you can download the information. But it is very, very easy to use actually, Twitter.
Okay.
We have a question from Jessica, and I think this is a good question. Oh, just got buried. Do social media scheduling platforms interfere with data collection? Any scheduling platform recommendations? So I think, Jessica, you're talking about Hootsuite, Buffer, those types of things. Mm-hmm. We've used Buffer at FND. We've used Hootsuite before in the past. We're now using Buffer. I mean, tomatoes, they're very similar. Both platforms are really great. Those are two of the biggest to be able to use. Neither of those are going to interfere with any of the data collection. The only thing that will limit, inside of Facebook, the only thing that will limit the types of data you can get back is when you premiere a video. So you record a video on your computer and then you upload it to Facebook as a premiered video, as opposed to going Facebook Live. When you go Facebook Live, they look very similar, but they're not. Premiering is just telling people, hey, this video is coming, it's going to be available, so on and so forth. And then all you get is the video views. When you go Facebook Live, you can see gender, you can see age, you can see all different kinds of stuff in terms of the analytics, not things we're reporting on right here, but it's stuff that we look at internally. Also, when you go Facebook Live as opposed to a premiere, you can see the location of your audience. And that's something that we look at all the time, is making sure, I just checked our page yesterday, and 95% of the people that engage with our content are from Florida. And that's super important and really great that Facebook pops out that information for us to be looking at. So that's really the only difference.
Yeah. Inside Buffer, that is the one that we use, so we know much more about Buffer, you know, than any other, is that you can also pull data directly from Buffer. And that is a good, you know, way to collect data too. It gives you that option. It's not going to be as much information as you're going to get directly, you know, from every platform, but it's going to let you know how many people have seen your content and stuff like that. And so if you want to try, not because we are, you know, promoting Buffer, but there is a new thing that you can create collections too. So in our case, we create things like we talk about IDA, for example, for a specific week. So you create that collection with all the scheduling posts that you have for that week, and it's going to give you a global number. And that is not necessarily, you know, directed to data collection, but it can give you a very good idea of the things that are working on your social media and which are the ones that are working better. So that's a good tip to know too, inside Buffer.
Okay, were there any other questions that we wanted to address right now? Okay, so I think we're doing really great in terms of our time. We would really like to talk a little bit about, we don't want you collecting data and reporting data for data's sake. The reason that you are collecting data isn't because Miriam told you so. It's really because we know that data looking at our data is a way for us to improve our programs. And when we're improving our programs is so much about not only who we're reaching, who's accessing our programs, but why people are accessing certain programs. So when we talk about, when someone asks the question about how long should someone view a video in order for us to count it? Well, for the data collection, we don't have a minimum that says, well, they have to view it for, 5 seconds or 5 minutes or 1/3 of the time of the video in order for you to count it. We don't have that requirement. But if you see that your users, individuals, families are maybe accessing your videos and really aren't spending that much time with some videos, but with other videos, they tend to be much more engaged, that tells you something about what kinds of videos, what kind of content is most interesting, of most interest to your users and to families, the families that you're serving. So, really, we really want you to really think about, okay, what are our users telling us about the kind of information that we should be sharing in social media? What are our viewers telling us about what they're looking for in terms of virtual trainings? Are people more interested in those virtual trainings that we post on YouTube that are 10 minutes long, or that are 5 minutes long, or that are 3 minutes long? Or do we find that we have a lot of viewers who are really interested in that really in-depth, hour and 15-minute video, and are actually, spending the time to really view those videos? So that kind of information, can really tell you and really inform you about how your programs are doing and where some places that you can put some attention in terms of your program improvement.
Now, one of the things that I love is the staff empowerment through data. So like I said, I'm a data junkie. I love data. I love looking at it. And I think it's super exciting to see what our programs, not only here in Florida, but across the country, what are we able to accomplish? So after, on a quarterly basis, when we're having staff meetings, we'll go through a data analysis and we'll look at what has each of our programs done, what are some of the milestones that they've accomplished, what are some of the digital events that they've done. And it's really exciting to see staff being able to explain the process they went through, how proud they were of all of the effort. A lot of these digital events, a lot of these digital conferences, digital symposiums, they are just as much work. I mean, ask the planner.
They're more. They're more work.
So, it's a lot of effort, it's a lot of time. And then to be able to see, we got 50,000 views, we got 75,000 views, and just the excitement behind that is very real and helps keep that fire going in our staff to be thinking of new ideas and motivating some of those ways of work. So that's one of my favorite things when we're talking about data for program improvement.
Yeah, people love that because it is, very interesting to think about, how it will look to be giving a conference to 50,000 people actually, right? So it is always so interesting to have that perspective, like in person, we may be serving 50 or 100 people, but in reality, we have been giving the information to 50,000 or 70,000. So that's always empowering for everyone to think about. Something magical about social media that I always remind people is like Social media is about giving. It's all about giving. It's not about you. It's not about what you want to share. It's not about what you think is important. It's not about changing the world outside. It's more, like about giving people what they need. So it's important to survey your audience. It's important to know what you are giving actually is what people want. Because when you get there to that point in which people are getting what they need, it is going to be organic. People are going to come back again and again and again to you because they trust you. They are getting what they need. So that will be one way, survey your audience all the time. Be always sure that you are giving updates on the news that people really need. Be sure that you are giving this information in a way that people can digest. That is extremely important, especially for us, serving families. Again, I can also talk from my perspective as a parent. I don't have time. It's really hard to actually go through the Q&A from the Department of Education that is like 40 pages to understand that, yes, I can sign online. So I need my parent center, to give me that information in a way that I can use immediately and apply. So that is really important, to understand the needs of our community and be actually driven by their needs and be always giving to them instead of waiting for them to give us something, So instead of waiting for the likes, just give something that people need and it's going to become organic.
Yes, and when we're talking about what the community needs are, using social media and other virtual tools, it really does expand who we're able to reach because there's so much progress in terms of translation and captioning, and so that we're not having to have the expense of translating everything and captioning everything. Many of these platforms like YouTube make it really easy for us to take a video and to get it captioned in English, captioned in Spanish, and that's really expanding our reach to so many communities where, because of our limited resources, we're not necessarily always able to provide that kind of translation and interpretation and access for families. And so really thinking about how are we looking at our data and using these tools in order to really expand the demographics of who we're reaching across our communities and our states. The technology is really so powerful, and we complain about how Facebook is changing, but a lot of the changes that are increasing access and also increasing our ability to reach families, to reach young people. And so we have to take the good with the bad, or the good with the challenging, and really look at how we're going to use that for us to go to that next level.
That's great. And that's so true. That's so true. Now, I just wanted to touch on one more quick point about the power of data for creating and strengthening partnerships. So one of the things that we ended up doing, utilizing social media and utilizing data and reporting, is we ended up working with our State Department of Education on the Indicator 8, so parent surveys, parent engagement information, and we hosted what was called a ESE Parent Survey Day. And we were on Facebook Live all day long from the Capitol in Tallahassee. We made sure that we engaged as many discretionary projects as we could. We sent it out to as many of the ESE directors to filter it down to staff. We really did a great job at promoting this. And that first year alone, we had over 65,000 views on those videos in one day. Now, we packaged that into a really nice graphic for our state director of special education, and it just blew her mind. She loved it. She was so excited about it, and she became our biggest champion across the state in helping us get connected into counties that were difficult, helping us get connected into all different types of areas, and strengthen relationships. But then she said, you're coming back next year, and we're going to do a family resource day, and really just started expanding upon the work that we wanted to do. So really making sure that after we do a project with another partner, we package up that information, we package up that data in a really great way to view it, and then we present it as a strength that we're able to offer. So,
yes.
And
I'm sorry, it is really much the perception, you know, about things that people tend to see as very complicated. They are a great investment when it comes to creating those partnerships.
Yes, and I'm glad Eliana said investment, because you know this data can create partnerships for us that can also end up providing us with additional funding. And you know, we have to, this is our expertise, this is our value that we're bringing to the table. And many of our, you know, partners, particularly state funders, as well as local organizations and foundations, really are looking for the kinds of dissemination strategies that we're all using and the way that we're using social media, because there is such a push now about how are we going to reach these families? How are we going to reach those families? How are we going to reach this group of families? And so you're bringing your parent center data as a demonstration of your expertise and why they should be working with you and funding you to do this kind of work.
Wonderful.
And another great, you know, like opportunity has been for us to actually work with the Parent Center Hub. We usually get information from that page, you know, and we create like graphics, we create one pagers that we post, that we use to share information. So when Deborah was talking about that, you know, it's not really about trying to recreate the wheel and investing, you know, or spending like weeks and weeks on creating materials. It's not about that. It's about working together in partnership and trying to do this all together, because we all have so much to give. And we know that we have limited funding all the time. So just keep in mind, you know, that it's always interesting to talk to other people and see what they have and combine efforts to get like an amazing product that again is gonna serve families and it's gonna provide what they need to be successful.
Mm-hmm. So there's a question, does Facebook separate out the Facebook Live views of trainings and regular info, or I guess from regular information?
Yes, absolutely. So when you go into that custom report, you can say, okay, I want to see posts and I want to see videos and I want to see video. It's going to encompass all of them, of videos you upload and then Facebook Live videos, but it will separate videos from a regular post. Absolutely.
Great. And Susan asks, do you consider a 3-minute video a training, say one that explains an acronym, or as a social media post?
So for us, you know, we've really defined a training for our organization, right? So we're defining those for our own organizations. And when we do that, we're looking at our trainings being about half an hour long. So our trainings, and again, that's for us at FND, they're a little bit longer, about half an hour. And the reason we chose that is we looked at research, we looked at attention span, we looked at all of those things related to adult learning style, and we realized that traditional hour-long webinar or hour-long presentation that you would do in person isn't going to translate well to a webinar style. So we condensed it down. We broke it up into different modules. We've used a number of different strategies. For a video that's about 3 minutes, you know, just a couple minutes long, we would classify that into a social media post. and not classify that into a training that would check off one of our webinars. But again, that's how we're doing it internally.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So if you look at the definition for virtual training, essentially it does say, it basically gives you credit for creating the training and creating that video as a training. And if this is a video that you have created, your parent center has created, and then it would be considered to be a training if that was the purpose for which you were creating it. I mean, typically when we're talking about a training, we have the presentation content, and we may have some handout, which may be through a link to another, to another document or something to help to reiterate that training, especially for individuals who need, both the video itself, but also might want to have that piece of paper as well. So I wouldn't say that either way is wrong. It's really up to what you set as your sort of benchmarks or standards within your parent center. And then if you want to be consistent about that, because that's how you're going to be able to look at your data in terms of whether or not is that working for you.
The consistency piece is such a big part of it. Absolutely.
Stephanie asked, for centers that host Facebook groups for different constituencies, what can you recommend regarding analytics from these groups? Because there aren't insights for groups, right?
No.
And I know for SPAN, a lot of our action is in our groups.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that Facebook is really, and I'm going to turn it over to Eliana to talk about this because she has a lot more experience in groups, but Facebook is working hard at promoting groups right now. They're working hard at expanding groups because groups are one of the best ways to create community, which is what this is all about. So I would not be surprised if they came out with a whole analytics section just focused on groups, but they don't have it right this second.
They don't have it because they really wanna, protect privacy. Is their only way to actually respect privacy, because when you're inside a group, it is not supposed to give information about how you move and what you share and what you do. So it's basically based on that, and that's why they don't have analytics. So probably in those cases, the number to actually count is gonna be the number of people that you have inside your group and multiply that for the number of posts. That will be the only thing that makes sense if you wanna, if we are thinking about doing something manually, because there is no insights for the groups. And I'm sure this is, a much longer conversation, but for now, there's no way to get any analytics inside the groups.
And something that we've done a lot of is, there's a ton of special needs Facebook groups here in Florida. And what our staff has done is reach out to the admin of those groups and say, hey, this is who I am, this is what I do. Can I host a webinar, a presentation inside of your group, and can you help me advertise it? So the admin, who the group members know and they trust, is going to advertise this presentation that's going to be a private presentation only for the people inside that closed group. And then you get in there, you go Facebook Live, you deliver your presentation, and you can actually go from Zoom into a group, a private group, as long as you're a member, and share your screen and everything. And then you can see the number of views. X amount of people have viewed this video inside of a group. So there are little, bits and pieces you can get. But it's definitely one of the more difficult parts about Facebook.
Exactly, and it is a dead end, because they cannot share outside. It's not something that is gonna be public, it cannot be public. So that's the only concern about the groups, that is not the best way to actually think about growing your audience if you wanna you know, people to share outside, and all that is not allowed anymore. And it also depends a lot on the kind of group that you have. Now, if you have a private group, you know, it is impossible to actually for someone else to see that unless it is accepted and all that. And if you have a public one, it gives you much more options, you know. So there's a lot about groups, but they are still working on rethinking groups and all that, because yes, they wanna go back, you know, to the promise that there is some privacy inside social media, actually, if that can happen.
Thanks, Eliana. So someone asked whether anyone transfers their Zoom polls into Salesforce surveys. I don't know if that.
We do not.
Okay. Maybe someone who's a participant might have some insight on integrating Zoom polls into Salesforce. And then someone asked, is that even possible? I think everything is possible with Salesforce. That's what seems to be the case. It's space you sort of ask. Oh, okay.
For the right amount of money, yes, that is.
For the right amount of money.
That's how it's possible.
That's the only difference.
So I do want to recognize Miriam Alizo is in the meeting, and many of you have gotten her information from her about the parent-centered data collection. But Miriam has really been the person who's taken the lead with delving into this issue about what are we doing around social media, and working closely with Eliana and with Joe, as well as staff from the Michigan Family Alliance and Parents Helping Parents in California, and one more that, and Partners Resource Network in Texas. And so we really appreciate this group of this team. They really worked over the course of about 7-8 months to really explore what are parent centers doing, and how can we be more consistent across parent centers in the ways that we're collecting our data and reporting our data. And that's a lot of the information that has informed our presentation this afternoon. So I do want to give this whole team a really big shout out. And I also want to give a special thank you to Joe and Eliana for really pulling things together and really creating this session. I see we've had a lot of engagement from our attendees, and they really have had a lot of questions, and I think we've answered just about every question. So I want to thank you, Eliana and Joe, for your help. And then I also always have to shout out our tech crew, because without a good tech crew, we all know what happens. And Leanne and Nicole have been keeping everything nice and stable and working here. So I really want to give those two ladies a shout out as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As you're leaving the session, please don't forget to go to the session feedback, and where you can, it's called Rate Your Session. If you go back into the agenda and into this session within the agenda, please go in and rate this session for us. We really want to hear how things are going as we are on this new adventure together on the virtual conference. You know, we can't stand at the door and make you submit your evaluations, but I'm hoping that you will willingly go into that module and give us your feedback in the evaluation. Thanks, everyone. Thanks so much for your attendance, and have a good evening or afternoon or morning, wherever you are. Bye-bye now.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.